the week that we all look forward to more than any other week.
Well, I think Port Adelaide showed they're not too far away, and we're going to have a chat about them first and foremost. But before we get into it, let's cast our mind back to when Ken Hinkley sat down in front of the press for the very first time as coach of the Port Adelaide Football Club.
There is a reason for some people to come out on, at the top at the right time, and people have said the last man standing. I've heard those comments. Maybe I was the right man standing. So we expect a side that's really honest in every contest, and then we expect a lot of trust within the team. So I think that's what you should expect from the Port Adelaide Football Club, is an aggressive, honest, and a lot of trust and a lot of team-first attitude.
Well, they were interesting comments, weren't they? I love the way he handled the fact that maybe he wasn't the perceived first choice there, and then I think he's pretty much achieved what he set out to achieve in a very short space of time.
He's been extremely impressive. I think that he's got the team really well organised. They're playing a great brand of footy. Clearly his players are buying into what he's set out to achieve, and, all credit to him. It's been a fantastic season for Port.
Now, I just want to stick with you for a moment, Scotty, because they won the first 5 games of the season. They took it by storm, didn't they? They surprised everyone. You were the first team that beat them, I think, down in Tassie in round 6. How did you prepare for them? What had you seen over those first 5 weeks that you had to really put some time into?
Well, I think there was I said before that game that everyone was surprised, and I was certainly one. I don't think anyone expected Port to be 5-0 at the time, but I've got a lot of time for Ken Hinkley and have had for a long time. Alan Richardson really knows his stuff, and he's a very good assistant coach. They've had good draft picks. Ollie Wines has come in, Wingard, Boak, Hartlett. They're all top 5 picks just about. Yep. So when you combine that with Darren Burgess coming in, getting them really fit, they're well coached, they're well organised, they've got great talent, and they're really fit. So, sometimes it's simpler than you think.
Was there a big shift in terms of the game plan or the game style?
Oh, look, I think they were playing players in really effective roles, and they appeared to be really well organised and really clear on what they had to do. So, we had to plan around certainly Boak, Hartlett and Wingard, because they were all in terrific form. And the guys did a reasonable job on them, but Wingard got away from us and justified his All-Australian selection last night.
Philosophically, as a young coach or a new coach going into a club, it looked like they had a plan over the summer to engage the media, to get out to the fans and give the inner sanctum a bit of a first-hand look to their fans. I think you spent time in the box. I was involved in pre-game meetings. How tough a decision is that for a young coach to make in the off-season before you actually coach your first game?
Well, I think you've got to balance everything. I started on Insider in my first year as a senior coach, and that was a decision between Fox and the footy club to really promote North Melbourne and to get North Melbourne relevant again. And I think Port probably made a similar decision in having Kingy in the box and involving you at different stages, Lynchy. So there's always a balance, but nothing you do can ever affect your team. But the bottom line is we want to engage our fans, and personally, when I talk, I'm talking to our supporters, sponsors and members, and I'm sure Ken's the same.
They've improved 4 goals this year, Scotty. They've kicked 16 more points than last year, and they've saved 7 points on average last year. That's a huge first year, isn't it? How hard now to replicate what they've done this year next year?
Well, I think that's the big challenge, but I think they'll improve again. I think one of the things they did really well was they were a very fit side. They finished off games really well. That game you mentioned at Hobart, I think we ended up sort of almost 40 points up at one stage and ended up winning by 10. Yeah, we dominated early, but they certainly ran over the top of us at the end. But I think that, for me, the things that stand out with Port this year is they've been able to stop the opposition getting the ball in their attacking half. They've been very well organised in defence, and their tackling's just gone to another level. They're one of the best tackling sides in the comp.
I want to show one clip here, boys, of their year for me. And their motto all year has been never give in. We can't guarantee we're going to win. We can't guarantee how we're going to go week to week, quarter to quarter. But what they can do is they can guarantee that they'll give 100% effort for 100% of the time. That was message from day one, externally from Koshy down to the coach, down to the captain, and right through the playing list. This passage of play is ugly, but it goes for about 30 seconds, and it just shows you that it's not necessarily skill that gets them a result in the end. It's not necessarily class, not necessarily leadership, really. It's just 22 players buying in week to week that this passage of play. It ends up being a goal, Lynchy, but look, it is ugly, isn't it? It's great.
It is, and you might have noticed Justin Westhoff was slammed on the centre wing in a tackle, and because of work rate and him, Tommy Logan goes to ground, knocks it forward, saying we're Monfrey's now Gray to the man that was slammed into the ground. on centre wing, he'd push forward. Hamish Hartlett is there as well, who could have got a possession. He was in the goal square at the other end of the ground at the time that play started. So it was fantastic. And I, like you, watching that, you think that's been typical of Port Adelaide. Never say die, get the ball forward at all costs, scrap it forward, and they were getting the end result.
When you see that, Jason, Scotty, you think, gee, that team's changed enormously. I want to show you a team from 12 months earlier, from when they had that loss against GWS in round 19 of 2012. So really only effectively, half a dozen games prior to what we've seen this year. They're the changes. Pearce obviously was moved on, Chaplin was moved on, and those guys have since parted company with where they are right now. But the bulk of the team's still there. The bulk of that lineup is still there, and it is about the structural benefits. The coaching's clearly a different message, and a bit of hope and a bit of belief back into the place. It's amazing what can change quickly.
I certainly wouldn't disregard the impact Matthew Primus had at that footy club. I mean, I think that quite often, and Ken Hinkley's done a fantastic job, and he's a very good coach. But I think quite often we neglect to look back at the previous coach who'd set a lot of things in place, and we can see from that side that a lot of the players were already there, a lot of the development was already put into those players, and they've had them all available. I mean, every single one of those players were all available to play last week against Collingwood and had a really good season, as evidenced by Boak, an All-Australian, and Wingard, an All-Australian.
That club's unrecognisable now, though. The Primus days are long gone.
But that's the last team he coached, and I take what Scotty's saying on board. He was on the right track.
Yeah.
He was putting together the right side, and some of those young stars have now had another season under the belt. They're a little bit more experienced, and they've really started to shine through.
But that's where Kenny's, I think, polished up probably Matty Primus's hard work. But he's gone in, and two of the older guys like Cassisi and Corns, he's engaged them in the whole process. He's told them straight away, first training session, I want you as part of the team. You're a really important part of the team. And I think that helps. If you engage the power brokers in the team, you're well on the way.
I'm not here to end, I'm here to extend,
That's
were the words
fantastic.
that he used.
And I think you'd also...
Until it's time to end.
Yes.
Well, that's going to be a time.
But the end comes to us all. I mean, the thing is, I think Ken would be the first to acknowledge the impact of Darren Burgess, of Alan Richardson. I mean, at North Melbourne, we're really fortunate to have Steve Saunders. We've got great player availability and a great injury rate.
Yeah.
So it is a team effort. It's not just the coach.
And let's not forget Koshy as well.
Yeah.
He put the club on
Promoted the brand well, hasn't he?
on the national market straight away. As soon as he walked in, I think he was mocked by some media commentators that it was a joke, living out of Sydney, being the president of the club. A fantastic appointment. And he's actually got them really up and going, and had I think their first sponsor was announced at the MCG, one of the car dealers, so fantastic.